To look a little emasculated watching after the boys and still comes off in a good light because the boys need that figure in their life. It's not like their father is exactly a role model. Rusty is a better dad than Jonas, but by itself that says just about as little a sentence possibly can. He's inattentive, insecure, and either dismisses them entirely or can't stop projecting his own life and expectations onto them. Also, he just lets them fucking die. Brock can kind of see how bad Hank and Dean have it, so he gets to step in and be a dad a little bit. It's heartwarming in a fucked up kind of way. He definitely has more of a relationship with Hank, but it's clear he cares for both of them. That said, it seems like he was maybe holding them back a little considering his skill as a protector. Season 4 brought a lot of changes to the formula, including Hank and Dean really starting to grow up and come into their own as individual characters, which coincided with Brock stepping out of the bodyguard position. He goes on to work with Sphinx, a sort of repurposed Cobra from G.I. Joe organization, with their facilities left over from when the OSI decided to wipe them out once and for all decades ago after they were framed for the supposed death of Jonas Venture Sr. It's a great one-season arc where Brock finally gets to play the vigilante a little, working outside the good guy-bad guy dichotomy to take down some actual threats for once, alongside Hunter and the other OSI refugees like Skypilot and Absolute Icon Shore Leave. The list of amazing threads and characters is, it's long, and I have to choose who's on top, which means I can't go into Shore Leave, and I just want you to know that it stings. Brock leaving meant the bodyguard role had to be filmed by ex-villain Sergeant Hatred, who was just about the sweetest old slab of this and that. Oh, he just wants to hug everybody in the whole damn world. He's nothing but love. Oh, we got tickets to a Broadway show. Anyway, he's a pedophile. Venture fans have echoed this sentiment, but I would have never, ever have expected to find myself this endeared to a former child molester. That's some vile shit, man. That's never leaving. But if nothing else, Hatred knows that, and he pays for it. On top of hating himself for his disease, he's also a recovering alcoholic. His wife left him, he lost his job, he lost everything. And now here he is, ready to be a goddamn Venture.
Look, I was in the Guild of Calamitous Intent, and I'm also a recovered pedophile. So if anyone knows the rules about abducting young boys from their bed, it's old Sergeant Hatred.
Why did I let you take this job?
Because I'm great!
Brock will go around the world. Maybe he'll teach an orangutan to box. Maybe. But he's not gonna let you hit him with a faulty shrink ray and make him hide in a ransom bag.
Maybe you could go out?
No.
Make some
No.
dead people?
No.
Well, fine! Thanks a lot for not helping!
Anything else?
Help me get dead people!
Hatred is up for anything, no matter how stupid, and it gets fucking stupid.
Hank, I know where you're going with this, and I love it!
Let's cuddle.
That's why he's the best. But even so, Brock is a hard act to follow, even if you're not a sex criminal. The boys come to more or less accept Hatred as one of the family as well, but it took some work. Hank especially started to find a bit of a rebellious spirit in rejecting Hatred and emulating Brock in his absence. Again, this is the season where things really started to change, and the brothers finally started to actually grow up.
Oh, hell no! Not this crap again.
Granted, this was the season where the whole cloning operation goes up in smoke, which means the boys actually have to age. Have I not mentioned that? That the Venture brothers are clones? Yeah, Hank and Dean have died. Like, a lot. In keeping with a Johnny Quest but a real-life idea, eventually you have to ask the question of, even with a guy like Brock, how do these two dumb kids survive this kind of crap happening around them every day? And the answer is they fucking don't, son! If there's one thing I believe the series really wanted to pull off, it was this. It just fits so well and makes perfect sense. That between the dangerous adventures, the serialized format, the legacy of super science, and the disregard for morality and humanity itself, the Venture brothers keep dying and being brought back to life by their father. It's not like it really matters from our perspective as viewers. Hank and Dean die at the end of season 1, and then season 2, bam! Go Team Venture!
Go Team Venture!
When Hank and Dean quote-unquote come back to life, the show seems to reinforce that it's really all okay.
Oh, come on, no, you're Dean. There's no other Dean. You're it, flesh and blood. Look, I was conceived in the backseat of a Packard. You were conceived in a tank, so what?
It's not as bad as being dead. It's nothing more than a band-aid for a really big boo-boo. Remake their memories, remake their bodies, and they're back. It's like magic. It's literally practically the same as magic in the logic of the show. So really, it's fine. Except it's not fine. A bunch of kids are fucking dead.
They are his dead sons, forever haunting his subconscious mind.
Deep down, even Rusty understands that. This is morbid. This is what this life looks like. This is what happened to Hank and Dean Venture. And it's part of the legacy too. It's just what this family does.
Helper's a family member. And when you lose a family member, what do? Cry? No. You rebuild him. That's the Venture way.
You've gone too far this time, Jonas. I thought you'd all be pleased. I saved our friend's life.
Yeah, but what kind of life is this?
As we learned in the last season, all of this is true of Rusty and by extension JJ and probably one other person I'll mention later. It's looking more and more like there are actually 3 Venture brothers to a generation. Maybe more, things are getting pretty sticky. For the boys, it's Hank, Dean, and Dermot, Rusty's illegitimate son.
Go back outside and ring the doorbell.
Seriously?
Dermot is Hank's best friend, and it's really pretty heartwarming how he fits in. He's a shithead teenager in a way I find really entertaining and true to life, but he's still a good kid, more or less.
Mr. V, I have a full-time job, and I teach ninjutsu classes on the weekends.
Technically, he wears that weird padded giant baby suit for a rape prevention class.
He gets to play the role of a real person, actual teenager Hank gets to interact with to spur his growth into an actual person as well instead of a cartoon character. For Dean, that person is the perfectly normal teenage daughter of Dr. Strange in practice, Mr. Rogers in person, Master Necromancer, and fan favorite Dr. Orpheus. I'm kind of running into the same problem as the show is here, where I love Dr. O to bits, but I just can't fit him into the script.
They smell my cat.
He's adorable, he's wonderful, I love the Triad, I love the Master, but we got more important things to talk about. Like a shallow gravy.
2, 3, 4.
Dean's growth in particular is more in line with what you'd expect from the guy who comes after Rusty. In Doc Hammer's words, Dean is a fulcrum. Things happen around him. Part of that is the role he's in. Hank was certainly that way too from the start. But it's also just his character. Dean is passive. He's growing up without control or context.
I say follow your dreams, even if they're about a giant spider with your father's head and he keeps stealing your penis.
And of the two, he's the one Doc has effectively chosen to be a successor, without even really considering what Dean wants, what it would mean to him, or how it would damage him. Rusty, despite all evidence, genuinely thinks Dean is suited to the role of boy adventurer in a way he wasn't. He also thinks Hank wants nothing to do with it, but Hank is kinda gonna be fine no matter what. Dean spends an entire season feeling tortured over the discovery he's a clone, but when Hank finds out, he just thinks it's cool. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of his sons, but that's just part of the Venture curse.
Dean believes this crap. He should have been Rusty Venture, boy adventurer. Hank got this life thrown at him, and he fights against it. Just like I did.
Since his father does nothing but project his own self-image onto him, that means unlike Hank with Brock, Dean doesn't really have a role model to speak of. Unless you count Giant Boy Detective. But it also means that Dean can actually relate to his dad a little bit.
Your dad may have been a worse father than you.
Wait, I thought you said you missed the summit.
I love you, Pop.
It's an awkward thing to bond with his father over having the same weird fucked up life he inflicted on him. But that's kind of just how fathers and sons work in a certain way. The other side of all this is that it puts Hank in the position of basically being outright rejected by his father. Oh, Hank. Sweet Hank. The Hank of my life. The only bat for me, besides the one from Fern Gully. He's all the joy left in this world and more. He's picked up the right lessons in every experience he was forced into, and also a bunch of quotes from shit he shouldn't know about.
And they kill clean. Don't let dames get in the way.
Honestly, Hank, where do you pick that stuff up? I never see you read.
And now he's clever, skilled, charming, and imaginative. He deserved better, is all I'll say. In spite of being saddled with everything that comes with the Venture name, he is truly his own Hank.
You speak of the truth. Your words are a very Hank, my friend.
On some level, behind all the bitterness and criticism, the show really loves its nerds. People who can get so deep into this stuff that they start to believe it really is magic, that it really imbues them with power. I think a lot of that comes from Doc Hammer. In Go Team Venture, he comes across as very attached to his dorks, particularly Billy Quizboy and Henchman 21, whom he voices and often writes for.
This is nuts! Like, half of it is written in Klingon, and the rest is Sindarin.
Actually, that's Quenya, High Elven, very similar to Sindarin.
Billy Quizboy is probably this concept at its peak. He and his best friend / albino permaleech Pete White are real, genuine failures. Billy and Pete don't have a trust fund and a compound to fall back on, so they're out here in a trailer in the desert pretending they're a real company. Billy is a brilliant surgeon, but no one actually wants to pay him to be a doctor, so it just results in him getting kidnapped over and over again to perform illegal super surgery.
Okay, I'm just gonna get back in the bag and you can knock me out or whatever. I just want to wake up in my own bed again.
He has nothing in the world going for him besides his vast knowledge and love for pop culture. But somehow that's kind of enough, because it really is magic to him. Doc is the real Rusty Venture, and even though Billy can clearly see what he's become, he can also clearly see that Rusty is in there. The guy who really went on all those adventures and lived that life.
Wow, you are back! Me and Rusty Venture solving mysteries.
Being the king of the fanboys in a comic book world, Billy is truly at the bottom of the totem pole. But it also means he's surrounded by everything he ever thought was amazing about the world.
No problem! We're super scientists! And we are living the dream! High five!
Even if his villain is just Augustus St. Cloud, that's still a villain, which means Billy's an actual hero. It's really all a matter of perspective. Even if all this old kitschy pop culture is outwardly meaningless, the feeling you get from it is real. It was the only real thing about it the whole time.
Wait, it is magic. Why would you doubt that? It's the please tell me ball. It was all worth it. We saved the world. We did.
Henchman 21 is very much the same. Doc Hammer said in the book that 21 and his arc is really what the Venture Brothers is all about, and I totally see it. Gary starts as half of the prototypical voiced by Doc and Jackson comedy duo that is Monarch Henchmen 21 and 24. There are a lot of those in the show, more than I had even initially realized. There's 21 and 24, Billy and Pete, Watch and Ward, Red Mantle and Dragoon, Tim, Tom, and Kevin, and looser ones like Hank and Dermot, the Monarch and Dr. Mrs. the Monarch, the Monarch and 21, Sky Pilot and Holy Diver.
The only weapon you'll ever need, friend.
Let's go.
They have all the great conversations over meaningless pop culture bullshit that give this show its identity.
Please, she'd be an asterisk 24/7 if she didn't weigh eggs.
Papa Smurf has a f***ing beard. They're mammals.
Again, this whole show is a conversation. Both 21 and 24 in particular, it's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Foregrounded background characters who can't stop drawing attention to how meta the whole thing is.
Yeah, you're the guy who doesn't come back.
Yeah, some guy who just shows up that nobody's ever seen before.
Right, he's all professional. Yeah, dude, you're a goner.
They really begin to think that in this whole comic book / Saturday morning cartoon world, they're kind of the main characters. However that happened, they're here now, playing those roles.
Dude, we're like those guys on TV that never get shot. Yeah, we're like main characters.
Don't jinx it.
It's not like they're wrong either. This is a cartoon. They're getting stories in focus. But what they didn't pick up on is that this isn't a Saturday morning cartoon. This is the Venture Brothers, and the Venture Brothers is gonna treat you like this is real life. That means if you're running around bombs, mummies, acid, and lasers, unless you have a whole bunch of clones waiting to back you up, you're gonna get yourself killed.
24! No!
It really is a shame to break up a duo like 21 and 24, but it's also the best thing that could have ever happened for Gary's character. Again, the show isn't hurting for these duos, but it needed a Gary. After 24 dies, he starts carrying his spirit with him, initially literally, then figuratively.
Come on! You help me all the time!
Do I? Or do I just let you feel secure enough to trust your intuition?
No! You are real!
Losing 24's ghost is one of the most moving scenes in the show to me, personally. But 21 gets his shit together because of it. He goes bear mode, learns how to do his job really well, to the point that he can make a plan and put up a fight against Brock Sampson of all people. Underneath it all, though, he never stops being a dork. He never stops making all these Goonie references and collecting all this crap.
At least you don't look like Peter DeVries anymore.
Who the hell is
Dude, boys!
From one of your...
Dude!
His love never went away, he just started living in the real world too. It's a really beautiful thing, and he's rewarded for it. He started off as being valuable only for being somehow totally expendable and invincible in the eyes of his bosses, but he eventually becomes really respectable to them. In spite of being insane, the Monarch is like a father and role model to 21. He basically takes Dr. Mrs. the Monarch's seat next to the Monarch after she moves up in the guild, and he and the Monarch end the series as actual best friends. The Team Monarch dynamic is pretty interesting in that way. Doctor used to be his girlfriend, used to play the classic sitcom role of vastly more competent and intelligent than her husband character.
So, all I gotta do is stay alive? And Rusty Venture is mine?
Well, that's what it says. Dr. Venture is a guild section rep. Wow!
The show is definitely lacking for women, and I think it's a symptom of that the most prominent woman in the show is being voiced by Doc Hammer talking like this.
Oh yeah, that guy is totally straight. I saw a whole thing about him on the VH1.
But he's the guy from Depeche Mode.
It reads as a joke the first time you hear it, and was definitely intended as one, but you get used to it so fast. That's just her voice, there's nothing off about it. It is a shame that her role is mostly defined by her relationship with her husband, but for this series it does kind of work. Again, it's putting competent characters in a second fiddle position and justifying it by saying that's just what they were meant to be doing. It's where they fit into the puzzle. In later seasons, she gets promoted to guild top brass, and she's great at it, but it also clearly shakes up the Monarch crew dynamic. Part of that is that she isn't working for him anymore, and part of it is being so wrapped up in the bureaucracy of the whole thing. She and top 10 awesome dickhead Phantom Limb, her ex, are effectively running the guild in the wake of the death of the Sovereign and the Council of 13 after Gargantua 2. And that's hard on both her and the Monarch because, well, I guess we should just dive into him now. The Monarch has been a guild villain since day one, but he's never really jibed with the whole guild thing in the first place. He's not a rules and paperwork guy, he's a die Dr. Venture kind of guy. He's got this unshakable grudge against a guy who, by all accounts, doesn't matter at all. He's both totally self-obsessed and Rusty-obsessed, which may or may not be more or less the same thing. I'll say it. I'm pretty sure the Monarch is a clone. When Ben is inspecting Dean in the episode where Dean discovers he's a clone, he checks for symptoms of cloning and lists them off in order.
No acrofacial nasal dysystosis with comorbid idiopathic hirsutism in the orbital region, yet clear early-stage androgenic alopecia. Poor little bastard. Pupillary response good. The subject is free of any fetiform teratoma and appears to have normal heart and lung function.
In effect, bald, tumor, eyebrows. It's all there. In the last episode of the show, we do learn the Monarch is blood related to Dr. Venture. I mean, the simple answer is Jonas Sr. slept with the Monarch's mother, so I guess Jonas is his dad. But that, it don't taste quite right. It's a little too simple. It's a little too easy. Sometimes you get the simple answer, and sometimes you get Grover Cleveland's presidential time machine. So, it's fun to speculate and all, but I obviously can't make any definitive statements. At the very least, we all get to go, ooh, Doc and the Monarch were the real Venture brothers the whole time. It all just fits. I love it. I live for it.
Wow.
All we really know is that somewhere in this whole mess of lore and history, the Monarch just started fucking despising Rusty beyond words. A grudge of truly mythic proportion. And that drives his life. It's too extreme a hatred to even be contained by the hero-villain system.
Hatred's become a job. I had true hatred with Venture. I didn't have to fake it. That sweet loathing just poured out of me whenever I saw his pathetic face.
In one of the best plotlines of the show, when the Monarch discovers his father was the Blue Morpho, a butterfly-themed Green Hornet-style vigilante and Team Venture ally,
Ow! Wait a minute! I'm not...
he takes up the mantle alongside 21 as his Kato in order to murk every single villain who has arching rights to Dr. Venture ahead of him, all culminating in some of the best reveals the show has on tap. I'm so glad I was already a fan before the Morphic trilogy, because I felt like we were just never gonna get answers to these things. And then bam! Sharky's machine. It shook me to my core. The Monarch's dad, the original Blue Morpho, was maybe the greatest victim of Jonas Sr.'s manipulation. He caught him making the biggest mistake of his life on tape and then blackmailed him into being used as a tool, handling the things Team Venture was too good to do themselves.
I need you to seduce Dr. Z.
He was maintaining the illusion, masking who Jonas Venture Sr. really was. And after he died, he left the Monarch insane and with a massive trust fund to blow through in pursuit of his grudge. He became another victim of the Venture philosophy, brought back to life as a cyborg to be used all over again.
Billy, I'm going to need you to transplant my brain into Venturian.
Wait, no, that'll kill him. I took a Hippocratic oath.
I didn't.
So now the good guy is the bad guy is the vigilante is getting cucked, and none of it matters to the Monarch himself because he just wants to act on his hatred. The Monarch and Rusty are very similar in ways beyond their appearance or genes. Pretty much everything I listed that would make Rusty a great villain is also true of the Monarch.
I can't remember a day of my life that you didn't up.
Calm down. Look at all that history. We have so much in common.
Oh, you don't know the half of it, buddy boy.
What is that supposed to mean?
He's bitter, passionate about his dumb toys, he's sitting on a fortune he didn't earn and still feels like he's owed something. It's all there. And both of them can, at the end of it all, kind of see through all the bullshit. They're putting up with the system and the paperwork because they have to, but that's not what it's about for them. I think that's why it kind of makes sense that the vastly more competent characters like Dr. and Mrs. the Monarch and Late Game 21 follow the Monarch in the first place. It's the fact that even though the Monarch isn't very good at this whole supervillain thing,
That's classic Monarch look at my cool new thing approach. I got my money on acid or a magnet kind of thing.
Ready the acid magnet!
he goes too far and spends too much money, he breaks what he's not supposed to break and can't operate within the rules letting him do this stuff. Somehow, in one way or another, the Monarch is maybe a genuine artist? Right? Like, sure, those two are good at it, but they don't give a shit about Dr. Venture. They give a shit about the Monarch. There's a magnetic quality about a person who's really honestly fighting for something. It's a surprisingly hard thing to come by, that kind of passion. And naturally, it puts him at odds with the Guild. I mean, why would you want to be a supervillain if you wanted to follow the rules? The whole supervillain deal is supposed to be rock and roll, isn't it? The Sovereign was fucking Bowie. I mean, he wasn't really Bowie, but he was Bowie. Red Mantle and Dragoon are maybe Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper. The Guild started because Phantomus wanted to be in a band. It's rock and roll. It's the appeal of showing up with lights and a fog machine, throwing up the bird and saying, fuck you can't tell me what to do. And maybe you're really good at playing rock and roll. Maybe you're good enough to build an industry from it, spawn a bunch of imitators. Maybe people get really good at selling tickets and making money. And there are 1,000 people behind the scenes shuffling paperwork to sustain that. Maybe now you can do it as much as you want, but you find yourself asking, what was the point of this? Maybe you have access to everything you thought you ever wanted, but you're finding it impossible to give a fuck. And then you see a psychopath in a butterfly costume who can't do anything right, but goddamn if he doesn't give a fuck. And then you become a henchman, I guess. I don't know, I lost track of this hypothetical. I guess that's why the stalemate by design in this show rings true, even to me, some kind of internet anime guy. In a future where all media is fed through the Disney washing machine and stripped of all its worth to be the most acceptable to the largest largest number of people, where culture and conversation are manipulated through flawless content algorithms serving growing numbers over the people that comprise them, I have to admit I find a certain joy in failure, making jokes to make myself laugh, and no one